Okay, I'm going to walk you girls through your dissection of a grass frog, also known as Rana pipiens. This is your specimen. We know that this specimen is in the domain, kingdom, and as we recently learned, it's in the class Amphibia. Amphibia, right? Amphi meaning double, so amphibian meaning double life, because we know that amphibians such as frogs and salamanders live a sort of double life with their early lifetime spent in the water and their adult lifetime spent on land. So you should all have a copy, a virtual copy of the frog dissection instructions up on your computer, and you'll be watching this video as you do your dissection. Remember that you can always push pause if you have to, especially as you draw the external and internal anatomy. Or if you need something repeated, you can always go back. Please do me a favor and read through your copy of the instructions before you watch the video any further. That way you know what you're expected to do and what I'll be grading when I look through your science notebook. Okay, we're going to begin by putting our frog dorsal side up. Dorsal is the back, so this is our dorsal side. This is our ventral side. When I talk about anterior, I mean towards the head, and posterior means towards the end of the body. So let's do a quick review. Dorsal, ventral, anterior, posterior. So put your frog dorsal side up, back side up, and go ahead and feel the skin. Make some observations. Remember, observations involve sight and touch, so check out the pattern on your frog. Go ahead and kind of like lift the skin up, see how thin it is. Remember, amphibians breathe through their skin, so that skin will be very thin so that oxygen can easily permeate or go through it. So take a look at the texture. It doesn't feel very slimy, it's almost leathery. And record your observations in your notebook. Next, we're going to take a look at the frog's limbs. I realize my shirt is kind of the same pattern almost as the frog, so let's see if I can kind of, there we go. So the two front legs are called the forelimbs, and the two back legs are the hind limbs. Take a look at the difference between these two limbs. Talk about that with your group for a second. Record in your notebook, what are the similarities between the forelimbs and the hind limbs? And what are those obvious differences? I mean, we look at this little guy up here versus this huge hind limb back here. You see that frogs have jointed appendages, right? Kind of like humans. Next, you're going to look to the anterior side of your frog towards the head. Identify the eyeballs. Let's get my probe here. Right, we see the eyes. So we see the eyes, the nostrils are right up here. And then you kind of see this circular indent of skin. If you recall, when we did our grasshopper dissection, we also saw a circular indent around that same area. And that was the grasshopper's ear, also known as the tympanum. This circular indentation is the frog's ear, or the tympanum. So tympanum is just the scientific way to describe the ear. Next, you're going to use your probe. This is the probe to kind of open and close the frog's mouth. Observe the teeth. Observe the movement of the mandible, the jaw, right? And next, we're going to actually pull the tongue out. So, right, our tongues are kind of connected to the back of our mouth. And when we stick our tongue out, it doesn't go very far. But we've all seen a frog, for example, catch a bug, and we know that its tongue goes out very far. So a frog's tongue, I know that's probably not very clear. A frog's tongue is connected to the front of the mouth. And so what we can do is kind of pull the tongue out from the back of the mouth. So you see, you see how the tongue is connected to the front of the mouth, and obviously when the frog is alive and there's juices flowing throughout the body, this muscle is much more flexible and stretchy, and so that tongue can expand way out to catch a bug, you know, over here or something. So let's put his tongue back in the mouth. And then another thing that I kind of want you to look at is on the eyelids here, there's kind of a thin, clear membrane. So you can kind of poke at it. You'll see that it's kind of just like a real thin flap of clear skin over the eyeball. So you can kind of see it moving around there. That's just a thin membrane that covers the eyeball. It sort of acts as goggles for the frog. When they go underwater, they can see clearly. At this point, you're going to draw and label the external anatomy of your grass frog. So what you're going to want to label is the eyes, the tympanum, the mouth, the tongue, so you might want to draw the tongue sticking out, how you saw it, the forelimbs, and the hind limbs. So you may want to pause the video and take a moment to draw your external anatomy. Next, we're going to turn the frog so that the ventral or bottom side is up. Here we're going to make our first incision. And we're going to just cut, you'll see that skin is really thin in the film. You can kind of see, well, you'll see on your frog how thin the skin is. But we're just going to make a small slit right in kind of the groin area. And you'll see that it's really easy to get the scissors under the skin there. So we're just going to make a slit down. And then you can pull away the skin on either side. And what you're doing is you're exposing the frog's hind limb muscle. There's not a whole lot to see other than this huge muscle, right? So you can poke it, feel how firm it is. That muscle is what gives the frog the ability to make those giant leaps that it makes, right? We all know that frogs can jump pretty high thanks to these strong leg muscles back here. So that would be the most obvious difference between the hind limbs and the forelimbs. If we were to cut up here, we wouldn't see quite as large of a muscle. Okay. Next, we're going to open up the body cavity of the frog. And the body cavity is just kind of this, this hole in the center that holds all of the internal organs. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut straight up like that, and then over towards the armpits. And then we'll peel the skin down, so you'll see what I mean. I'll cut like this so you can see. So cut straight, get under that flap of skin again. You can kind of use the hole that we did for the legs. And you're going to cut straight up towards the mouth, and then down towards the armpits, and then over down here by the legs, we're going to cut over towards the side as well. I'm sorry, little guy, your leg's in the way. Then what we're going to do is we're going to pull this skin off to the side. We might even want to cut it off. Oh, gosh, that skin comes off so easily. So just kind of peel the skin away from that body cavity. And now I actually didn't cut deep enough, so I'm going to have to go through this second layer of epidermis or skin. Oof. There we go. Hopefully you're cutting with me here. Okay, so now your frog should look something like this. Now the first thing that we see is this sort of tan gray blob, for lack of a better description. And we'll see that it has 3 sections. See, there's one over here, one here, and one here. That's going to be the liver. The liver helps the frog to metabolize, right? We learned metabolism is chemical reaction. So it helps digest or metabolize the toxins and fats that enter the frog's body. So the liver is a very important organ, as we can see from the size, right? It helps the frog digest toxins and fats. Now we can use the forceps, the tweezers, to kind of pull the liver out. Not ideal. Let's maybe try to use the scissors to cut the liver out. Okay. And you'll see that just under the liver there's kind of a little greenish sac. It's real small. That's called the gallbladder. And the gallbladder just stores the liver juices, which help to metabolize toxins and fats. Anterior to the liver, or to where the liver was, so anterior meaning towards the head, we're going to see the little heart. So you may have to pull back some of that skin, maybe cut a little higher. So this structure here, just below the center of the frog's head, is the heart. And so remember, frogs and amphibians in general have a 3-chambered heart. We can't clearly see the 3 chambers, but we have 2 atria that receive blood. Then they pump the blood to the ventricle, which sends the blood either to the lungs to get oxygen or out to the body once it has oxygen. On either side of the heart, you should be able, let's see, where's my lungs here? Well, there they are. They're kind of deep in there actually, so you might have to kind of dig into the body cavity a little bit. There we go. And you'll see these kind of pinkish, brownish, spongy structures on either side of the heart. So right here and right there. Notice I had to kind of pull them out from underneath. These spongy structures are the lungs. And the lungs are responsible for giving oxygen to the blood so that the heart can pump that oxygenated blood throughout the body and provide oxygen for all of the chemical reactions that take place inside of the frog. Okay, kind of in between the lungs, off to one side, you're going to see a little kind of bright orangey yellow spaghetti-like structure. It's real hard to see. So this guy right here. It kind of looks like a piece of spaghetti squash maybe. That's part of the fat bodies on the frog. So humans, we store fat subcutaneously or under our skin. And we know that fat is good to some extent. It provides us with energy. It's an extra source of food for our body. But frogs, as we notice, they don't have much fat. They're all muscle. And so their fat is stored in these fat bodies. And that gives them an extra supply of energy while they're hibernating or for females when they're breeding, things like that. So their fat is stored in fat bodies. If we move posteriorly towards the bottom, we'll see this kind of pinkish, whitish sac right here. It's pretty obvious. That's the stomach, right? The stomach stores food. If we follow the stomach down, we'll see the small intestine. So we can kind of well, you'll be able to see. You're going to want to trace the stomach down to the small intestine and then continue to trace it to the large intestine. That's the digestive tract for the frog, right? It goes from the stomach to the small intestine to the large intestine and out as waste. Now, your job is to draw the internal anatomy of a frog. So you're going to want to draw what you see, and you are responsible for labeling the liver, which is that first thing that we took out, the heart, the gallbladder, which was under the liver, both lungs, the fat body or bodies if you see more than one, the stomach, small intestine, and large intestine. Make sure as you are drawing your internal anatomy that you are also describing the function of each one of these structures. So for example, the liver helps digest toxins, the stomach, small intestine, and large intestine are part of the digestive system, the lungs provide oxygen, things like that. Make sure that you understand the function of each structure. That information will be included on the quiz. Okay, I hope you found this video helpful, and now your responsibility is to clean up your lab station. If you'd like to explore your frog a little further, you can if we have time. Otherwise, congratulations, you have completed our last dissection.